basically, we're going to talk a little bit about, how to build an impressive personal statement, or otherwise known as a statement of purpose. Okay, so let's look down. Okay. Let's look then at what exactly the talk is going to be about, and we'll break it down into several parts. So we look first of all at what is a personal statement. Okay, and we're going to look at then of how you can really stand out and sort of stand out from the crowd and be successful in your application. So we then move on to sort of look at the opening paragraph, which is really key to writing a successful application. Okay, so what's happening? Yeah. Right, I'm just gonna. Okay, I just had a little bit of a problem there with the right. Okay, so we're looking at what is a personal statement. So a personal statement forms a key part to your university application, and you should really use it to showcase your skills and try to to show the tutors that you are the best fit for the course that you're applying for. Okay. Okay, so what exactly is a personal statement? Well, it's something which supports your application to study at a university in the UK. So there are important things to remember. Let's go back down to the basics and say, is there a word limit to the personal statements? Well, the answer is no. There's no specific maximum word limit. Okay, but there is, however, a character limit, including spaces and punctuation, which is allowed on your UCAS online application. The UCAS stands for the University and Colleges Admission Service. And there's a 4,000 character limit to this, or a total of 47 lines. So UCAS recommends that when you write your personal statement, that you do it in Microsoft Word. And before copying and pasting it into the online application form. This is because the application form itself sometimes becomes inactive after 35 minutes. So whatever notes you have will be saved on your Microsoft Word document. And you also have to notice that sometimes the individual characters in the Word might be different from the online form. So just be aware of that. Okay, so only write one personal statement, which will then be used for any university you apply for. So you can often sort of think about, the specific course that you apply for. If you're thinking about talking about skills or transferable skills, then those can be sort of referenced on the same personal statement. So don't write more than one personal statement. Keep it general, but the skills that you think about, the course that you're actually applying for. So start as soon as you can this process. Really start early, and the key to this is really researching your topic online. So think of yourself as being an online detective. Okay, you're kind of looking at courses at universities, and you're looking at the prospectus, and think about what is involved in the modules of the course that you're studying. How is the course going to be assessed? and try to kind of like, research it thoroughly before you actually start with the writing of your personal statement. And then once you've uploaded your statements, you can't change it. So be sure to proofread your personal statement and make sure that it follows logically, and that there aren't any errors in the spelling and punctuation, etc. Okay, so we'll now look about we'll now consider how you can stand out from the crowd and really shine through. So remember that there are often hundreds, if not thousands, of applications that a university department might receive and look through. So it's really important to stand out from the crowd. So how can we do this? So think about a personal statement is a way to communicate to tutors why you are a good fit for the course. And, we really have to think about why choose me to be on the course? What is special? And what passion can you demonstrate for the subject that you want to study? Remember, you're going to be doing this for the next 3-4 years of your life. So, you really want to be passionate about the subject you choose. And then think about the personal, keep it personal rather than talking about family members or friends. Think about your own personal experience and what really fires you and sparks your interest in the course. And then remember the purpose of the statement is really to try to convince the tutors that you are the one that they want to choose to for the university place. Okay, so making yourself look different from the crowd. So just let me read the first part of my slide here. Okay, just to summarize. So remember to kind of keep it special and say, why should the university choose you? And then this suggests that, you think about the personal statement, and then, it suggests you should be allowed to express yourself however you want, right? But remember, to a certain extent, this is true. But admissions tutors also want to get an overall picture of you and your teacher, not your parents, your teachers, or your best friends. So really, this has to be something coming from your own work and your own experience. And then think again, remember the purpose of the statement is to persuade the staff members at the university they should offer you the highly sought after university place. So although there's no strict template for this, there are specific things you should include and certain things that you should avoid in this case. So you need to talk about your relevant skills and your experience and your achievements and things that you've gained through extracurricular activities, whether these are sports or music or creative activities. So as well as going through your academic record to date, your personal statement also gives you the opportunity to talk about any work experience or volunteering that you've undertaken. Give details of what you've learned from this experience. For instance, you might have been involved in some young business enterprise program at school, and you might have a better idea of how to manage money, for example. And then choose me. It's never too late to show how you're actively preparing for higher education. So get involved if you're not already involved get involved with a extracurricular club, or secure a part-time job, or even volunteer for a job. You could even complete a free online course in a relevant subject, okay, with, for example, organizations such as FutureLearn. And this will really show how interested you are to learn and develop your skills in your chosen field of study. Okay, and let's move on, and we're now going to talk about the opening paragraph. So at this stage, how important it is that we need to think about why it's important, the opening paragraph. So why did you become interested in the subject in the first place? Was it through a work experience, or was it through studying the subject at high school? Once you've noted down some reasons for choosing a course, you can move on to your skills and what makes you stand out positively from other applicants. And providing evidence where each specific attribute is being utilized. And once you've written this down, try to condense it so that it's less wordy. And then you can attempt to write a punchy opening paragraph showcasing your genuine excitement at the prospect of going to university and an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. So the opening paragraph is extremely important for the following reasons. So it's really a very short paragraph, so you need to be the whole statement is quite short, so you need to be very concise and to the point, so instead of rambling. The opening paragraph acts as an invitation to keep reading, and avoid using very much used cliches such as I've always wanted to be an engineer since I was a child. This kind of thing is not the invitation readers are really looking for. So instead of this one, you could use an anecdote, which is something which is from personal experience, or an inspirational moment. Okay, so the example on my slide is like, although tinkering with engines had always been a childhood hobby, it was the vision of the fastest car on earth, the Bloodhound, at an exhibition in London that roused my desire to learn everything I could about automotive engineering. So you can see that this example is really inspirational, really what sparked your inspiration to get involved and what sparked your desire to work in automotive engineering or whatever the course is that you're applying for. Okay, so how can you show your commitment and skills? Okay, so we're going to look now at a sort of the three parts to this, right? How we can really demonstrate our skills in the personal statement. You can do this following a simple ABC rule, which I'll explain in a moment. On the next slide, we can look at it in some more detail. So the first part of this is like action. So, what have you done in the past, in your past experience, which really shows your interest and your commitment to studying the course that you've chosen. The second part would be the benefit. It's really important to describe what benefits have you gained from this experience. And the third part is the course itself. Why did you choose it? And why is it important for you to continue and study this and study in depth at university? So let's look at some examples. So an action might include things you have done or experienced or even read, things that have helped you in your choice of degree and boosted your knowledge. So let's give us some examples of this one. It might be, for example, you're applying for a science course at university, let's say chemistry. So, for example, were you involved in a chemistry club at high school? Or were you involved in some peer-assisted learning where you're helping, for example, younger students or kids at school in their science class or to help them understand the subject? And in which case you can give, some examples of this, and it helps you to really, your tutor can really see how passionate you are about the subject and how open you are to learning and being involved in new experiences. Or, for example, you might choose to study English, and everybody will say, "Oh, I'm really interested in reading books." But hey, who isn't interested in reading books? Everybody who applies to university is interested in reading. So you might want to give some real examples of, which novelists you like to read, or which writers you want and which writers really inspired you. Or we could talk about a comparison between two books that you've read, maybe a treatment of how the treatment of the subjects was different. These are good examples of really getting down to some detail and explaining, what did you do and what was the benefit of your actions. So then, it's really important to explain what you learned from these actions. Okay, and then the course itself, the most successful applicants ensure that the information they include is relevant to the course in order to highlight the suitability to be chosen. So, for example, flower arranging may allow you to realize your creative potential, but will it help you study astrophysics? So, think about the relevance of the experience and the fit to the course that you're actually applying for. So this is known as the ABC rule: action, benefit, and the course. Okay, so at this point we'd like to mention some extras that you can mention in your personal statement. So you can mention why you chose the UK in your personal situation. So why did you choose to study in the UK? Again, this goes back down to your research. When you're researching online and looking at the information in the university prospectus online, often gives you a lot of information about the campus or the college and the various activities, not just academic, but maybe sports or creative or some extracurricular activities that you can get involved in at the university of your choice. So you can also think about, why did you choose the UK rather than, say, Canada or New Zealand or some other country? What drew you specifically to study in the UK? And don't forget to mention English language courses and tests that you've done and what qualifications. So, you might want to mention your IELTS or any other courses that you've done in English to help you improve your academic English skills especially. Also, if there is any personal or financial circumstances that have had a strong bearing on your performance at school or college, you can outline these in this statement. The coronavirus pandemic may affected many people in all the world, and it had a strong impact on many people's studies. So let your university know about this, and how did you face up to those challenges? These are the things that your tutor tutors would really like to hear about. So what kind of tone should I use for my writing? So the three things I have to say here about this one is use a formal tone. Okay, so always like in your writing, try to avoid using informal vocabulary, for example, and stay relevant. Okay, you talk about things that you're really interested in, the best fit for the course. So stay relevant and on topic. And the last thing is be positive. So let's look at some of these in more detail. So remember to be formal in your presentation and your writing. You shouldn't really use contractions or slang or jokes, okay? So remember, the statement will be read by academics. Often they are sort of leaders in their field, okay? And as you have to pack all this information into relatively short statements, it's really essential to avoid the superfluous, or as I like to call it, the fluff. If a sentence sounds pretty but doesn't give the reader information, then remove it. Okay, remember the word, the character limit, it's going to be short. So, just take out all the irrelevant information or sentences that don't really give any more information about you or your reason for choosing the course. So it's a good idea to start early when you're thinking of applying and writing your personal statement. Okay, so you build up notes and then you can write maybe more than you need. And it's always better to edit it down rather than to start with very few sentences and pad it out. So, write a lot of things to start with and then cross it out. So, you're reducing it in size. And remember, finally, negativity has no place in a personal statement. So if you need to mention a difficult situation, well, that's very good, but then think about how you overcame that situation. So ensure that you present it as a learning experience rather than giving the reader an opportunity to notice any shortcomings. Okay, so that's thinking about the tone that you should use in the personal statement. Okay, let's move on now to think about my five top personal statement tips. So first one I think is when you begin the research, use a mind map for your ideas. Okay, mind map is a good way of capturing your thoughts on a blank piece of paper and making connections between different things. Get some help, but never copy. Okay, so in this case, resist any temptation to use other people's work for your own, or the similarity detection services that are used by the universities is a kind of system which will compare your statements against those which are stored. So they've got a comprehensive library of statements online, and they really will notice that if you've copied something or used someone else's work. So always avoid this temptation altogether. And try to, as well as giving an open, punchy opening, remember to give also a memorable conclusion to your writing. And then don't be afraid about talking about weaknesses. It's really good to, to talk about things, challenges that you've faced and how you've overcome those challenges. So that sounds like a really good, authentic story about how, you faced a challenge and how nobody is perfect. So it's always good to kind of like show how you're learning and how you're developing as a person and as a kind of as a student. So don't be afraid to talk about weaknesses. And the final thing is be clear and detailed and use real examples. I think tutors really sense it when you talk about real things, and they can really spot you if you're faking it and you're not really talking from your real experience. So be authentic and give real details about your experience and how you've learned from them. Okay, so we've come to the end now of my talk, and if we got any questions, we moved on to the questions part.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, for such a wonderful presentation. I think myself, I got many things out of the lecture that you just gave, ABC rules, and to stay relevant and positive, and then have a formal tone as well. And then I really got, the thing really spoke to me was that to stay genuine when you are writing a personal statement and whatnot. So we have about 20 minutes left. So we'll try to answer some of the questions that we received during the registration and the ones that are coming in live. 네, 저희 지금 발표는 여기까지고요. 저 이제는 Q&A 세션으로 넘어갈 건데요. 질문을 저희가 미리 받았던 질문이랑 그리고 지금 실시간으로 올려주시는 Q&A 미팅 채트에 올라오는 내용으로 한번 꾸며볼 예정입니다. Okay, so here is one of the questions that we have received in our registration process. So it's, what tips do you have for people who need to write personal statement in a hurry? Is there any tip that you would like to give? Do you have any quick answer? I will translate this into Korean really quickly, and then please answer from your side. 그래서 첫 번째로는 저희가 이제 받은 질문들 중에서 만약에 급하게 이 자기소개를 써야 한다면 어떻게 하면 좋을지 혹시 팁이 있는지 물어보는 질문이 있었습니다. Now over to you, Peter.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question, Jihyun. It's really interesting. I mean, as I said earlier in my talk, it's always a good idea to start early. I mean, there's no reason why you can't start your research right now or right tomorrow morning and research online. But yeah, I appreciate sometimes people are in a hurry and they want to write a personal statement in a hurry. So a good idea then is like start with a blank piece of paper and then write some bullet points, right? Like what really inspires you to apply for this course, this particular course. And, think about, as I said before, about your personal inspiration. Try to kind of give some, details about, what was it in your life, one particular thing that inspired you, and write it down. Okay, write it down in the form of a bullet point, and then make maybe 3 or 4 bullet points about what inspires you academically for the course. But also on the other side of the paper, you can also think about I spoke a little bit about the extracurricular activities, what other things that make you a well-rounded person. So those might be, for example, any clubs or organizations that you belong to, or it could be any hobbies and interests that you have, which, often they have extracurricular activities at university, on university campuses. So, you can pursue those in, you join a science club, or it could be a sports, or it could be music, it could be a reading group, So note down those 2 things so on one side, you've got your academic bullet points, and on the other side, your extracurricular bullet points, and try to kind of, bring them two together when you're writing your personal statement.
I see. Thank you for such a great answer. And now we will move on to a question that has been received through the meeting chat. 이제 미팅 챗으로 올라온 질문들을 다룰 건데요. 아까처럼 먼저 영어로 이제 질문을 읽어드리고 그 다음에 우리말로 한번 설명드리는 이런 형식으로 하겠습니다. So here's another question. Can you share some more common cliché sentences that will turn off the reader's interest? It'll be very useful for non-native writers in Korea. I'll translate first. 우리는 이제 영어를 이제 모국어로 하는 사람들이 아니니까 혹시 저희가 쓰는 표현들 중에 자주 이런 personal statement에 쓰이지만 이 굉장히 클리셰인 좀 뻔한 그래서 뻔하기 때문에 이제 그런 좀 좋지 않게 비춰질 만한 그런 표현들이 있는지 문의하는 내용이었습니다. Over to you, Peter.
Okay, that's a really great question, and I think the reason I say that is because year after year, the number of personal statements that begin with the words like "ever since I was a young child, I've been interested in." Yeah, and I think the university tutors really don't like this statement. It's on thousands of personal statements. So really, they're not so interested in your formative years as a child. Try to keep it more connected to, your recent interests or recent interest at high school, and try to avoid this cliche, ever since I was a young child, and avoid those words altogether. I also mentioned, people often say, oh, yes, I'm very interested in reading. Well, who isn't interested in reading? So everybody who applies to university is interested in reading, right? So try to be more specific about your reading and say, well, what if it's articles in, for example, a science magazine, or if you read The Economist magazine, or if you're interested in novels and literature, try to give real examples of things you've read that really have inspired you. Yeah. So, another example I might give if you're interested in studying psychology, for example, so you may have some work experience working in a nursery, or you might have done some babysitting, and you might have read a book about developmental psychology. So try to give an example of what books have you read about developmental psychology, right? And, look at some of the experiments that have been made in the field, and give examples and your opinion about those experiments. Yeah, that will work much better than just giving general statements of like, oh, I'm really interested in reading, right? And another one, which is quite common, many people will have noticed that studying at university in the UK often involves group work and teamwork, right? Learning is a team activity, right? Not just an individual activity. So often people say, oh, I'm really good at group work. Okay, again, it's a cliche of many people are good at group work, but try to drill down and say, what makes you special? Are you good at organizing, for example? Give a real story about a time that you were working in a team and maybe something that went wrong. How did you fix it? So if you had a challenge, how did you overcome those challenges? And those are kind of the stories of real, authentic stories that the tutors will really respond to and really make you shine through. Okay, so those are good examples of avoiding those kinds of general cliches.
I see. I mean, the first one that you have mentioned, the one saying that like ever since I was a little child. I think it applies to Korean writing as well, because it's very commonly used, and people who are reading those applications, they are pretty much sick of it. So, okay, so another question. If you need to talk about or like give episodes and examples of to explain what kind of person you are, how many stories should be there, or should there be, like 3 success stories and 2 failure stories? Like how many is too much, or how many is adequate, and like what do you say, appropriate?
Yeah,
I will first do it in Korean. 그래서 이제 여기 그 빌 이삭초님이 질문해 주신 건데, 뭐랄까, 약간 예시를 들거나 뭐 케이스 이런 걸 얘기할 때 뭐 몇 개를 드는 게 가장 이상적인지, 뭐 3개의 뭐 성공 이야기와 2개의 뭐 실패했던 사례들, 이런 얘기를 할 때 뭐 몇 개까지가 너무 많고, 혹은 몇 개가 이제 좀 좋은 정도인지를 물어보는 질문이었습니다. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jihan. It's an interesting question about the balance, right, of your personal statement. So, as a general rule, you could say that we want to talk about 80% of the personal statement should be about academic achievements and academic interests, and 20% should be non-academic, so extracurricular things, and to try to give a more rounded picture of you as a person. Okay, and then as the case in point as to regarding weaknesses and strengths and weaknesses. Okay, obviously you want to highlight your strengths and say, what makes you a good fit for this course, and what are your strengths as as a potential student and in academia. So you should try to kind of keep it positive and talk about your strengths, but don't cross the line to being so arrogant. Okay, you might want to try to be a little bit a balance of saying, you're good at, and give some examples of what you're good at, but without saying, I'm a truly fantastic person, and try to avoid extreme adjectives, I'm like awesome or fantastic. Yeah, try to keep it real. And then as for weaknesses, I mentioned before, obviously, it's a good idea you can mention a weakness that you had, or a challenge that you had, but as long as and that's absolutely fine, because it keeps it authentic. And then also try to talk about what you learned from that experience and how you've become better at doing those things. If you say for example, you're talking about working in groups and you're talking about your organizational skills, what have you done to help you with those things? So those could be some simple things. For example, I now use my Outlook calendar more effectively, or I keep a record of things that I've read, and things that I want to read. So like how have your organization skills developed as a result of that experience, right? So talking about weaknesses is fine. Maybe talk about one thing that you've developed. That keeps it keeps the personal statement authentic sounding, and that is really truly what the tutors are looking for. Yeah, they're not looking. Nobody is perfect. They're not looking for someone who is like fantastic and perfect.
True. I agree. Thank you so much for such a thorough answer. I believe that would have been helpful for the person who has asked the question, and the people who in the audience as well. So we have just a few minutes left. So I want to have another question.
Yeah.
Asking that if you study at the British Council, the teaching center, Can you, so is this the kind of classes that they will be taking or receiving? Is this lecture like similar to the ones that are given at the teaching center?
At the teaching center for English class?
Yes, yes.
It's a little bit different from this lecture, right? So if you're interested in studying English at the British Council, we have like what we call a communicative approach. So we often involve like students are working with tasks where they have to communicate with each other. So and this one is a little bit different because it's a lot of me talking, okay, to the audience, to everybody here. But when you study English at the British Council, you will be doing a lot of talking and reading, and you'll also be talking to other students and then looking at upgrading your English level. So it's a little bit different. We use more like it's more of a communication, and we use much more. It's much different. It's a lot different from this lecture. So it's not just a teacher talking. Mm-hmm. It'll be like students doing activities in the class, a lot of speaking activities, but also reading and writing activities. Yeah.
I see.
So it's a bit different.
Thank you. Thank you. So now, since it's almost throughout the session, thank you so much for such an informative session.
Yeah.
And please, everyone, send thank you messages and warm applause to Peter for a lovely session. 참석자 여러분, 오늘 발표가 도움이 되었다면 채팅창에 감사 메시지 남겨주세요. 자, 이제 저희 공지하도록 하겠습니다. Yeah. So thank you so much, Peter. You can log off. Thank you. 앞으로
wish everybody success in their applications.
Thank you very much. 네, 이렇게 지금 발표 잘 들어보셨나요? 저희 영국 유학 관련된 최신 행사 혹은 행사 소식, 정보랑 행사 소식을 받아보고 싶다면 저희 그 주한영국문화원 스터디 UK 카카오톡 채널 추가해 주시기 바랍니다. 저희 본부 스터디 UK 홈페이지도 있고요. 가장 최신의 정보, 영국 유학 관련한 가장 최신의 정보가 이제 영어로 올라와 있어요. 그 부분도 한번 확인해 보시고 페이스북, 인스타그램, 트위터에서 스터디 UK랑 그리고 주한영국문화원 주한영국문화원 그 채널을 구독하시면 저희 이렇게 진행하게 되는 행사들 안내드리도록 하니까 그 부분 참고해 주세요. 그리고 저희 이번 웨비나 후원해주신 에어프랑스 KLM에서 유학생들이 관심 있을 만한 학생 운임 상품 안내를 드리도록 하겠습니다. 에어프랑스 KLM이 이렇게 지금 보시는 것처럼 슬라이드에 영국의 많은 도시로 취항하고 있는데요. 영국 유학할 때 편리한 스케줄을 찾아서 이용하시면 될 것 같아요. 그리고 학생 운임이 있어서 그 상품을 이제 별도로 안내 드릴게요. 학생 운임 혜택으로는 추가로 수화물 2개를 무료로 드리고요. 그리고 항공권은 무료로 변경이 가능하고 여행을 취소했을 때도 환불이 가능한 바우처를 요청하실 수 있습니다. 그리고 항공편이 만약에 여러 가지 이유로 취소된 경우에도 환불이 가능합니다. 학생 운임 예약 방법은 그 에어프랑스나 KLM 웹사이트에서 승객 선택할 때 학생을 선택하시고 예약하시면 되고요. 학생 증빙 서류가 꼭 필요하니까 그 부분도 준비하셔야 합니다. 오늘 저희가 준비한 이제 이게 3번째 세션이었죠. 오늘 저녁으로는 마지막이고 이제 내일 또 이어지는데요. 참석해주신 모든 분들께 진심으로 감사드리고 내일 오후 6시에 시작하는 그 4번째 세션에서 영국 석박사 과정을 마치고 이제 자신의 진로를 걷고 있는 영국 동문들의 경험담이 있을 예정입니다. 그 이후에도 또 여러 가지 세션이 준비되어 있으니까 많은 관심과 참석 부탁드려요. 모두 건강 조심하시고 다음 세션에서 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.